Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for your patience today. We were experiencing a few technical difficulties, but we are up and running now. I do have one quick announcement to kick us off today. I know you guys signed up to see a session from our friend Tracey Pitts, but technology being what it is, it just thwarted us a little bit this morning. So I will be your host today for Pear Deck 201. My name is Risa Bennett. I'm the program manager for education and outreach here at Pear Deck. But I am using the content that Tracey prepared for you today. So my hope is that I can do it some justice. Again, you're joining a Pear Deck 201 session. Hopefully many of you were able to join our introductory session yesterday. If not, I encourage you to stay, but I do want to give you fair warning that this is going beyond the basics of Pear Deck. So I hope that you'll be patient and courageous as we take a little bit of a deeper dive into exactly what Pear Deck can do to help with student engagement in your classroom, whether that classroom is virtual or in person this year. So without further ado, we're going to move forward with our presentation today. We will be taking questions at the end of the session. So if you're dropping questions in chat, hopefully people can help you along the way. But if you're expecting an answer from me, I will be dipping into questions at the end of the session. So stay tuned for that. And we thank you for your patience this morning. Let's get started. I'm not Tracey, but this is our friend who would have been presenting for us today. I'm just going to skip right over that. If you're here, you probably know something about Pear Deck. You maybe even already love Pear Deck, but here are just a few things that we are hearing when teachers see Pear Deck in action for the first time. Let me just read you a few of them. People think that it is super easy and engaging for their presentations. They find it great for formative assessments. One of our favorite things that people say about Pear Deck is that students who don't normally engage get involved when you run your lesson with Pear Deck. Down at the bottom here, you see too, somebody even called it a game changer. Student engagement scores and understanding was much higher than last year and easy for both me, the teacher, and for my students. Hopefully, as we go through today, you'll see exactly how Pear Deck might even be a game changer for your class this year. So let's start with a quick temperature check, and I am asking that folks do not join this session if you know how join codes work in Pear Deck. Normally I would have you joining my session as a student, but today, because there are so many of you, I'm seeing at least 1,300 of you, we would break the Pear Deck today. Pear Deck is designed for a classroom size group. You can support several hundred participants on a live Pear Deck session, but I can guarantee you quite firmly that 1,500 would not go well with Pear Deck. So I have a few of my friends here who have joined my session instead. So I will be showing you the 3 different views of Pear Deck, but why don't you drop in the chat how you're doing today? On a scale of 0, needing a duvet or hiding under your blankets, to a 10, feeling like you're in a good space. Why don't you drop your feelings in the chat for us today to see how you're doing? All right, meanwhile, I'm gonna see how the people who joined my session are doing. And it looks like people aren't sure how they're doing, so we'll just hold on that. Normally, as you saw yesterday, I would be able to show student responses here if anybody had joined and participated. Let's see if anybody's feeling good. Maybe not quite yet. Well, that's okay. Hopefully you guys are doing great. I should probably check my chat here, but I won't because there's so many of you. Anyway, what I want to recommend is always when you're doing a virtual session or an in-person session with your students, just checking in on their feelings. A little social emotional check can go a long way in helping you pace your lesson, especially when things are so challenging right now. Knowing how your kids are doing, you may have if you were in Ken Shelton's keynote yesterday morning, he actually talked about how often he adjusts his lessons based on students' SEL checks. All right, we're looking at a Pear Deck number slide here. So this is where I would check somebody's understanding about how many continents there are. Let me show you quickly what this looks like on the student side. So here I was showing you the projector view. This is what I would have up on my Zoom share screen, or if I'm in class, actually up on the big screen. Meanwhile, students having joined the session would see an answer like this, and they would select, I guess this is a multiple choice question here, and they would select the right answer here. And then I would be able to see those responses here on my teacher dashboard, or I would be able to project them anonymously up on the projector screen as well. This is a Pear Deck drawing slide, and if you're not fluent in French, this is basically instructing students to identify as many 3-letter English words as they can based on the puzzle here. Again, a student view of a drawing slide looks like this, and I have joined as a student so I can show you a few things here. But I might do car here or ice, and you can see again what it would look like on my teacher dashboard view, knowing that this is my student who joined, and this was the answers that she gave. And then again over here on the projector view, I can show my responses, and they come up anonymously. Again, you'll notice that on my teacher dashboard view, which I would never show to my students, but I am showing you here today, has my student's name, has how my student was doing today. But again, over here on the projector view, to protect students' anonymity, this is completely anonymous. We, at Pear Deck, we tried to move as quickly as possible this spring to adjust to the needs of a quickly shifting education landscape. Most of you probably started school last year in a brick and mortar classroom with your students in your classroom with you each day, and probably ended your school year with students scattered all over your county or your city and not able to communicate with them face-to-face regularly, if at all. So one of the things that Pear Deck added to our collection of functions this spring was teacher feedback. So Pear Deck has a couple of different ways that you can provide feedback to students. One is real-time feedback called teacher feedback. And then we have another option that I'll look at a little bit later in this session today called student takeaways. Teacher feedback is something that you can communicate with students through the teacher dashboard, which I just showed you a moment ago here. You can just send direct, specific feedback on a specific response to a specific student. So over here, oopsie, I want to show you really quick what this would look like. You'll remember that I did a few interactive slides here, and over here, to the right of my screen, you'll see that I have 3 icons. And if you were in one of our sessions yesterday, you may have seen that we can do a few different things when students give their answers, and as a teacher, I want to share those with the class. I can select a few answers, highlight the exemplary ones, or maybe highlight a couple that have conflicting responses. And when I star those, only the responses that I star will be showed on the projector view. Again, they will still be anonymous, but as the teacher, I'm able to curate these ahead of time. I always tell people too, I used to be a high school teacher, and if I had had access to Pear Deck in my one-to-one classroom, I would have been more than a little terrified actually to project drawing responses up on a projector view if I was not able to curate answers, because I don't know, your students were probably all perfect angels who would never misbehave. But I had a few in my class who were prone to misbehave and might have taken advantage of things like the drawing slide. So not only can I star a few answers if I want to highlight just a few on the projector view, the other thing that I can do is click the three dots that are right here in the bottom right, and I can actually hide responses as well. So I bring all that up because in the middle, nestled right in the middle, is our feedback button. So here I can see that my student Risa gave me a couple of different answers. She found car and she found ice, but I think she can do a little bit better than that. So here in my feedback, I'm going to send her a little piece here, and this is exactly what the teacher view looks like. I can see that who I'm sending feedback to. I can see that I have not yet sent any feedback to my student Risa, and this is the response that she gave. So again, I want to encourage Risa, and I'm going to start out saying, you found 2 good ones. Let's see if you can find 2 more. We know that with feedback is only helpful if it's constructive and specific. So I could have just said, good job, Risa, or keep going, but that doesn't tell Risa how much more work she needs to do. So I was careful here to be specific and direct. I identified what she did well, and I gave her a very clear direction on how much more I wanted her to do. I want her to find 2 more. So now I'm going to send that feedback to Risa, and I can send more here if I want to. So then I'll go over and we'll look at our student view, and this is what happens on the student side when the student receives feedback. So we see the little icon here next to the feedback button, and I also had that little modal saying you've got feedback. So I'm going to click on this, and as the student, I can see now what my teacher told me and how long ago I received that feedback. Okay. She said I did a good job. She said she wants me to find 2 more. I can mark that as red, and my little icon goes away. And now I can clear that and go back to my full screen. If my teacher had given me more specific instructions and maybe I forgot exactly what she said, I can always revisit her feedback right here. So again, this is feedback that can happen in real time. You can use this if you're in an in-person classroom. Sometimes maybe you don't want to give verbal direction to a student. You don't want to embarrass them. And you can do that in an instructor-paced lesson. But as you saw yesterday, Pear Deck can also be used asynchronously using our student-paced mode. Teacher feedback is also a great option if you're in student-paced mode as well. In fact, you may find it the easiest for you. One thing I do want to highlight to you is it doesn't, if a student isn't in the session, they will not receive a notification. So you'll need to shoot your student an email through Google Classroom or whatever LMS you use maybe to communicate to students, just alerting them that you've left them feedback on a number of slides and that they should go back and update their responses. So again, this is just a little quick screenshot of how it works and what happens, but you've seen it live now, so we don't have to take too much more time there. As I mentioned, Pear Deck has 2 different modes for teacher feedback or giving feedback to students. The first is what I just showed you in the teacher dashboard called teacher feedback. Our second way of providing feedback to students is via a student takeaway. And I don't know if anybody that has joined my session wants to give me a quick guess about what a student takeaway is, but this is a text slide. So if I was a student and I wanted to give my response about what a student takeaway is, a student takeaway is a Google Doc generated for each student who joins a Pear Deck session. So a student takeaway is, in fact, a Google Doc that is generated for each student who participates in a Pear Deck session. And in that Google Doc, you have every single slide from the presentation, as well as the students' individual answers to those slides, plus any links that you've embedded into your Google or into your Pear Deck presentation. All of that is saved inside the Google Doc, and it is saved directly to the student's drive when you close the Pear Deck session. So not only does the student have access to this Google Doc, but you as the teacher also have a copy of the Google Doc. And as we know, the way that Google Docs work is that they are shared permissions so that the teacher can actually go in and edit the doc, and so can the student. So let's take a quick look here. This is a sample of what a student takeaway looks like. Let's see if I can pop this open for us really quickly. Oh, just kidding. I didn't quite have that set up. So let me go through the quick anatomy of the Google Doc. It tells you the section, and you will have named your section. It tells you the name of the lesson. It tells you the teacher and the student's name up here and the date that the lesson took place. And so because it is a Google Doc, it is fully editable. And so you have the part up here that is called a summary section. You might encourage your students to do things like go back and reflect on the lesson, maybe give a summary of what they learned. You can also have them summarize how they felt about the lesson. Did they find it easy? Did they find it challenging? Do they need more assistance before they can move on to the homework or to whatever the summative assessment may be? And then as you can see here in this box, it says what kind of question it was. It has the question here. I know this is just an illustration. And then off to the right, it shows the student's response to the question. And this is just a PDF image, so they can't necessarily edit their answer, but they can reflect on it underneath. So just to recap a few things about how student takeaways work. They are generated when you as the teacher close your session in Pear Deck and name it. If you do not close your session and you do not name your session, students will not be able to receive the student takeaway. And that is because it gets organized in a Drive folder, it gives it a title. So you want to make sure that you name your session. The second thing that you want to know is where they live. So they live in Google Drive. And a student takeaway, when it is sent to the student, is it lands in its shared with me folder. And students can organize that in their Google Drive once it's received. Just like anything that lives in Drive, it is all easily organized and editable. It also lives in your Drive as the teacher. So you probably know, if you've used Pear Deck before, everything you create in Pear Deck is automatically saved into Google Drive into an auto-generated folder called Pear Deck. And if you've ever browsed that auto-generated Pear Deck folder, you see that it has subfolders. It has it for different sessions, it has it for student takeaways, it has it for your vocabulary lists as well. So once you're in your Pear Deck folder in the takeaways section, then you can actually go and see it's organized by your file name and then by your session name. So you can go in and find any student's takeaway that you've generated. So again, who can receive a student takeaway? Any participant in your Pear Deck session will receive a student takeaway when you save and end the session. So the student or the participant receives them. The student can edit them, and then you as the owner of the doc can also edit them. One thing that I really love to encourage is sharing the student takeaways with parents. This is a great way to show off student work, to show show parents how the student was engaged in your lesson. It's also a communication jumping off point if a parent maybe doesn't know how to talk to their student about what's happening in school. So if you, again, because it's a Google Doc, it operates the same as every single Google Doc. So if you want to give And I am. All right. Hello, everyone. I am so sorry for the technical difficulties. Turns out it doesn't really matter where you live or how fast your internet is. Things can just go wrong. So I have a little bit more to show you, but I need to reopen some tabs. And so I think maybe the best thing to do at this moment is if my moderators could share a few chat questions with me, anything, maybe questions that you have throughout my presentation, and I'll see what I can answer. And if I can get my tabs opened again quickly here, I might try to finish out the presentation. I do apologize for the technical difficulties, and I thank you so much for your patience. Let's see, so I'm seeing a question here. Can we use the write and draw tool at the same time? That is a great question. The answer is no, you cannot combine interactivity types on slides. Although I will say, when you use a drawing slide, it does have the option to stamp text, so students can technically type using the draw function. So if you're wanting to differentiate the inquiry, I recommend using the drawing slide because students can write, can draw or type their answer. When you're in presentation mode, how do you access the student view? Do you have the login as a student using the link code? Yes, so what I did, and if you want to see how this works in a little more detail, I highly recommend going back to watch Stacey Rochan's presentation from Pear Fair yesterday. She did a beautiful presentation about engaging all students with Pear Deck, and she actually showed us how you can open up a tab in your same browser and join the presentation as a student. And when you do that, you're actually able to treat it as an annotation tool. So you would write in the answers as a student, and then you could actually project your own responses the way that I did if you wanted to show the right answer or model a process. And you can use your same Google credentials. Do student takeaways get sent by email? Yes, they do. So just like any shared file in Google Drive, if you, when you end the session, every participant will receive an email notification that says your teacher shared, or so-and-so, whatever your name is, shared a doc with you, and they can access it that way. All right, any more questions for me? Will teachers get a Google Doc of the lesson if takeaway is not activated in settings? Great question, Amy. The answer is no. You do have to make sure it's activated in settings. The good news is if you have Pear Deck Premium, or when you sign up for a free trial, settings automatically enables student takeaways. You would have to manually go and turn that off in your settings if you are using Premium. But when you end your session, it will pop up a window that says, that'll ask you to name your session, and of course say, are you sure you want to end it? And there's a little checkbox that says publish student takeaways. So you'll want to make sure that box is checked if you want the takeaways published at the end. Do students have to download Pear Deck, or so they get it when the teacher uses it? No, so the really fantastic thing about Pear Deck is students don't need a Pear Deck account. They don't have to download anything or install an app. All they need is either the link to the session or the 5-letter join code, which you can share with them. And then they would just go to joinpd.com and enter the 5-letter join code in order to participate. They don't need to download anything to get the full benefits of Pear Deck as a student. Where do you access the different views? Great question, Maria. So when you launch your presentation from the Pear Deck add-on for Google Slides, first of all, when you're in Google Slides and you've created your lesson and you have your Pear Deck add-on sidebar open on the right, you'll just hit Present Lesson with Pear Deck. And that automatically generates, for you, the teacher, it generates a window with the projector view. And if you have a premium account, it also automatically opens a second window with your dashboard view. You can also access the dashboard view by opening up a new tab and typing peardeck.com/dash. And then you can open that on a separate device or in a new tab or in a new window, whatever you prefer. And then when I joined as a student, which I showed you on my screen just a moment ago, I just opened up a new tab and I typed in joinpd.com and entered the 5-letter join code and was able to join as a student. And I do want to just highlight Tracey Pitts' session. We're going to have it re-recorded and you'll be able to access that now. We're just going to treat the rest of our time together as a Q&A. I know you have tons and tons of questions, so we'll just spend another 5 minutes or so answering your questions, so keep them coming. Are student takeaways available with the free version of Pear Deck or only premium? Student takeaways are a premium feature, so you must have Pear Deck Premium in order to have access to student takeaways or to the function. Any takeaways that are published, if you have a free trial, any student takeaways that are published during that time that you have premium will remain in your Google Drive and remain in your student's drive as well. But you will not be able to publish new ones if you're only using the free version. Karen, that's okay. 101 questions. We've got a few minutes. It's no problem. So does a teacher need 2 devices to show the class view and keep the dashboard on a separate device? You do not need 2 devices. You can open up separate windows or separate tabs. The one challenge is that if you're doing something remotely like we're doing now, you would maybe need to split your screen or make sure that you're only projecting the projector view. You can have 2 separate windows or 2 separate tabs and still run the teacher dashboard. It just makes it a little bit more challenging to be sure that you are only projecting the anonymous responses. So I want to say that even if you don't have 2 computers or you don't have a tablet, that's no problem. You can run the teacher dashboard off of a smartphone as well. So it's a little bit smaller to look at, but if you're looking simply to drive the presentation or quickly scan participation, your smartphone will do the trick as long as you have Wi-Fi access or data for that matter. What do you do for students who are absent if you're giving takeaways to a teacher-led session? You can do this a couple of different ways. And Kathleen may be asking an even smarter question than she knows, because what I want to tell you quickly about publishing student takeaways is that you can only publish them once per session. So in the case that Kathleen is talking about, where she might have students who are absent, if she ends the session at the end of a lesson and publishes those takeaways, if the student who is absent joins the session, like she reopens it and joins it later, they will not get the takeaway. So what you might do is just open up a separate session in student paced mode and have them complete the lesson that way, and then end the session, they can get those takeaways. Can I get animations to work on Pear Deck slides? Yes, you can. You just have to install the Pear Deck Power Up Chrome extension. So to be clear, Pear Deck is an add-on for Google Slides or for PowerPoint Online. But if you want your animations to work, or your transitions, or your GIFs, or anything like that, you will also have to add the Pear Deck Power Up Chrome extension to your Chrome as well in order for those animations to work. If we star answers, will they automatically show up, or do you have to show responses? You still have to show responses. So you can start, while kids are responding, you can be scanning and starring things, but nothing will change on the projector view until you hit show responses. Looks like we have time for a couple more questions if they're still coming through. How do I become a certified Pear Deck educator? So we have a number of different certification options that we offer. The one that is available to everyone at any time is our Pear Deck Inspirational Educator Badge. I'm going to have my moderators throw that link up in the chat right now. Inspirational is spelled punnily, so it's a little bit challenging to type it in. But basically, you have to have presented 20 sessions with Pear Deck, and then you also submit a sample presentation. We have the Google Certified Educator program, and then the Certified Coach program. And right now, those are available invitation only to districts that we offer in certain regions. So if you are hoping that we'll bring our certified training programs to your region or to your district, you can actually submit an interest form at peardeck.com/coach-interest-form and let us know that you're interested. We do use that to make our decisions for hosting events. But again, they are specific to regions and they are invitation only. So make sure that you're using Pear Deck regularly. We do look at usage, and we do look to see that you have your inspirational educator certification as part of the process. All right, I think that concludes our time today. I know that this has been a challenging morning. I apologize for the delays. We apologize for the break in connectivity along the way. If anything, I hope that it reassures you that no matter how high-tech you are, you can still experience technical difficulties. In the meantime, you will be able to access this recording at this link, and then we will eventually have Stacy's recording available to you as well. Thank you for your patience today. We will see you at the next session.